Few tales are told of Hades, whose very name inspires fear and penitence, reminding us of the inevitable fate which we all share.
I love mythology. Norse mythology is definitely my favorite. Jormungandr and Fenrir are two of my favorite subjects in all of mythology, but Greek mythology is a close second, followed up by Egyptian. As much as I love Norse mythology, there's something so fascinating and captivating about Greek mythology. The relationships between all of the Olympians and the Titans and Mount Olympus and everything that goes along with it is so interesting. When I heard that there was a roguelike game that was built entirely on the relationships between the Olympian gods and the gods from the House of Hades, I was hooked immediately. I knew that that was going to be a game that I enjoyed from start to finish. If somehow you haven't figured it out by now, that game is Hades. Without further ado, let's get to the game. If you've never seen one of these videos, here's about what I do. It is my goal to 100% complete 100 different games over however long that's going to take. This is game number 5. I've done 4 so far. It would be much appreciated if you go check those out. And then I rank the games after they've been completed from a score of 0 to 100. Pretty simple. Let's get to it. So, for starters, let's lay down some completion requirements. First of all, we're going to have to beat Hades, obviously. Then we're going to have to beat all of Skelly's challenges, which just have to do with making the runs more difficult. Then we're going to fully upgrade Nyx's mirror. Then we are going to complete all of the Steam achievements. And we have to max out all of the relationships with the characters. Of course, not all those things are going to necessarily be in that order, but by the end of that, this is what we should have completed. Okay, so before we start, if you've never played Hades before, it would be helpful for you to understand how the system of the game works before we go through completing all the different achievements and things that we have to get through in this video. So I'm going to go through that really quick. In Hades, you've got 5 different central areas that you travel through throughout the entire game, all of which are very important and you see a lot. However, the first one, which is easily the most important out of all the 5, is the House of Hades. The protagonist Zagreus, the son of Hades, obviously lives in the House of Hades. He is the god of rebirth, and if you're interested in learning about Zagreus, which I would absolutely recommend you go check out the Very Messed Up Origins of Zagreus by John Solo. Great channel. Anyways, he lives in the House of Hades, and in the House of Hades, it's your general central hub. It's where you interact with most of the main characters, like Hades, and Nyx, and Achilles, and Megara, and, many other characters. It is easily the most central to your progression. It's where you level up your character. It's where you do all of the things necessary to progress in the game. From a general perspective, a vast majority of the things that we're going to have to complete are going to take place in the House of Hades, whether directly or not. Only 2 out of our 5 main completion requirements are going to take place majorly outside of the House of Hades. Every time a run is finished, whether you succeed by defeating Hades or you get killed in one way or another, every single time a run is finished, you end up back at the House of Hades. The first of the 4 locations that you make your way through on your way to Hades is Tartarus. Tartarus is generally the beginner area. It's easier than the other 3. I mean, it's pretty general stuff, but it's not a cakewalk at the beginning of the game either. Once you make your way through Tartarus, you end up in Asphodel. It's the next layer up from Tartarus. It's a little bit harder, your general progression. Once you get later in the game, you almost never die in Tartarus, but then every once in a while you might. It's still not a total cakewalk, and in the beginning of the game, especially if you make it into Asphodel and you're one of your first few runs, you almost certainly will die very quickly. The third level of the underworld is Elysium. Elysium is easily the hardest of the 3 that we've talked about so far. It's where the difficulty spikes, I wouldn't say dramatically, but definitely significantly. You're no longer fighting against shades and dead people that just happen to end up there. You're fighting against real warriors now who actually have fighting prowess and can do a pretty good amount of damage to you, and if you get surrounded, it's pretty easy to die, and it took me quite a while to get through Elysium the first time. Last but not least, you've got the Temple of Styx. In the Temple of Styx, Cerberus is there to block your path to the outside world. In order to get past Cerberus, because obviously we're not going to kill Cerberus because we like Cerberus, we have to go get him what's called a satyr sack, which can be assumed is just a pile of mangled body parts of satyrs, which infect this level of the underworld, I guess. And we feed it to him, and we move on. He lets us pass. All good. Now we just have to get through Hades. Of course, getting through Hades is no small task. I'm not going to touch too much on it right now because we're going to talk about it quite a lot in the future, so I'll leave it at that. Now that we've gone over the outline of Hades and how we're going to reach our goal, I'm going to go over some of the more nuanced things that are going to become important once we start talking about achievements, which I'm going to do right after this. First of all, there's the relationships with all of the interactable characters. You can gift them one of the collectibles in the game called Nectar, and they will in return gift you something the first time, and for certain characters, the more you gift them, the more things that they will gift you in return. In addition to that, all the Olympian gods throughout the course of your run will offer you boons, which will be like basically perks that will help you in various different ways as you go along. There are the Infernal Arms, which are just the different weapons that Zagreus collects throughout his journey. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the special gates. The regular gates you go through and it grants you a standard reward, but there are two that are different. There's a Chaos Gate and an Infernal Gate. They both do different things. I'll kind of explain them when we talk about it later, but for now, that's all you need to know. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we can actually start going over some of the achievements that we've gotten so far. Up to this point, we've completed 10 achievements out of the 49 total in the game. We've gotten Escape Tartarus for escaping Tartarus, Escape Asphodel for escaping Asphodel, Three-Headed Boy for petting Cerberus 10 times, Skelly Slayer for slaying Skelly 15 times, Friends in High Places for using a Greater Call to invoke an Olympian's aid. We've got Arms Collector for unlocking each of the Infernal Arms. We've got Chthonic Colleagues for filling the Chthonic Colleagues Prophecy, which is taking place in the Prophecy book. We've got Escaped Elysium for clearing Elysium. We've got Death Dealer for beating Thanatos by 15 kills or more in one of his minigames. And we've got Back to Work for earning access to and entering the Administrative Chamber, which is essentially just a room in the House of Hades that you don't have access to right away. Next on the to-do list, we're going to have to actually beat Hades. I think I got to Hades 3 or 4 times before I could actually take him down, and it was a decent challenge, but in the long term, it wasn't actually that hard to beat him consistently. Now that we've beaten Hades, a lot of the game actually opens up to us. Of course, we get our achievement, Is There No Escape, for actually defeating Hades and clearing an escape attempt, but we also meet our mother, Persephone, and it opens up a whole bunch of avenues for the next things that we can do in our various different runs throughout the underworld. So now, with Hades defeated, we can cross the first one of our completion requirements off the list, and we can move on to working on the other 4 more diligently. So at this point, I was having a lot of fun with the game. I really wasn't experiencing much frustration. I was completing achievements fairly frequently. I felt accomplished pretty much all the time, and I was very happy that I decided to play this game. Funnily enough, this game was actually the inspiration for this series as a whole. So to be able to play it now and have a fun time with it, I was really having a ton of fun. While I talk about my feelings about the game at this point, I'm going to throw some achievements up that we completed soon after defeating Hades. As I said a second ago, this game was originally the inspiration for this entire series as a whole. I watched the completionist play it a few years ago, and I absolutely fell in love with the game, even with how much he keeps away from spoilers and all that kind of thing. I love the game. I knew I wanted to play it, and I never really got around to it, but when I decided that starting a series like this would be fun, Hades was immediately the game that came to my mind. It was going to be a challenge, but I would love every second of it, and it was originally planned to be the first video of this series. That didn't happen because I wanted to get better at editing and get better at video production as a whole and try and gain some traction on YouTube, even if it's only a little bit by the time I made this video. I've really never fallen for a game as fast as I did for Hades. I love this game so much, and it's probably in my top 10 favorite games of all time at this point. With that being said, however, I'll be the first person to tell you it doesn't come without its flaws, especially if you're trying to complete it rather than just play it normally. The first of those flaws that was glaringly obvious to me now, 35 hours into the game, was just the monotony of completing some achievements, which is why I say it's not necessarily applicable if you're just playing through the game regularly, because at this point, a lot of people would be done with the game. You've beaten Hades, you've done a lot of the things that the game has to offer, and you can pretty much put it down and be happy with your experience. But that's not really for me, because that's not what I do here, and, you know, I guess I'm a masochist or something. A lot of what I was doing at this point was going through each run over and over again, top to bottom, beating Hades, interacting with every character that I could throughout my run, and kind of just hoping that the things that I wanted to happen or needed to happen were actually going to happen. Whether that meant coming back to the House of Hades and interacting with a new character or another character that I needed to progress a certain storyline or whatever it may be, that's kind of what I was doing, and it did definitely feel quite monotonous. That being said, I did complete a couple of key achievements, one of which was the fact that I maxed out Nyx's mirror at this point, so that was good. We can cross that one off the list. At this point, at the very least, I understood that if I didn't hyper-focus on something that needed to be done, one of my big main achievements, that it was going to take me absolutely forever. And the one that I decided to focus on was, it would technically would fall under the category of completing all the achievements, but it was one specifically that I knew was going to take me quite a long time, and it wasn't going to be easy. That one was Friends Forever, for max ranking each standard keepsake, and we don't have that one yet, but that's the one that I was focused on. I was going through over and over again, with each different keepsake that you earn from all of the different gods and people you talk to, and just going through over and over and over again, because the only way to do that is to complete a certain amount of rooms with each keepsake, which takes a very long time. While working on all the keepsakes, I also decided it would be good to try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do Skelly's challenges while I was at it. The first one was pretty easy. It really only required you to get a little bit of the difficulty modifiers from the Pact of Punishment. The second one was pretty hard, but at this point I was getting pretty good at the game. The third one took me quite a while. For some reason there's no achievement for the third one. There's only an achievement for the first 2. I'll throw those up on screen, but unfortunately I forgot to get a recording of when I actually beat the third one, so you'll just have to take my word for it, I guess. While working on Skelly's challenges, I also completed a few various other achievements, mostly just general monotonous ones, but I did complete the one for unlocking all standard keepsakes, which means now we interacted with everybody in the game, so that's good. Of course, this means we can knock off one of our big main challenges for completing all of Skelly's challenges, and we can move on to bigger and better things, hopefully. Going into the next little subsection of gameplay, the fatigue and burnout was real. I was just going through over and over again. I was giving ambrosia and nectar to every single character that I saw over and over and over and over and over again. Every single time I could, every single run. And ultimately, every run led to nothing. And it's not necessarily a fatal flaw of the game, because the way that you're supposed to 100% complete this game is over a long period of time, just because you want to. You know, not because you've committed to doing it for a video or something, which I did, obviously. But I was really getting burnt out. I didn't want to play anymore at this point. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of the achievements I got while working towards maxing out all of the character relationships, because that's pretty much what I was doing at this point. So I'm going to go through quite a few of them here. We've got Weapon of Fate for clearing an escape attempt with a hidden weapon aspect. We've got Tools of the Architect for choosing 20 different Daedalus Hammer achievements. Haste of Hermes for using his keepsake to get to a certain point with it. I got Well Versed for fully unlocking the Olympians Codex entries, which means that I had fully maxed out the relationships with the Olympians specifically, so that was good. We were almost there. Then I got Bad Call for using an Olympian's call against them in a trial. Harsh Conditions for fulfilling the Harsh Conditions prophecy. I don't remember exactly what that does, but it had to do with the Pact of Punishment in one way or another. Then we've got Grown Close for forging a bond with any character, which is basically just that you're in love with the character. It's a little weird, but it's whatever. But for some characters, it also gives you what's called a Chthonic Companion, which is another collectible from them. Then we've got Dark Reflections for filling the Dark Reflections prophecy. It's just something from the prophecy book that I had to do. Musician and Muse for reuniting Orpheus and I don't remember her name, but his girlfriend. And we've got War God's Bloodlust, which is another prophecy. Thanks but no thanks for purging a legendary boon. Something you can do in the middle of your runs is purge boons, which basically is just selling them for coins. And then we've got End to Torment and Night in Darkness, which are both prophecy-based, and, I don't really need to go into it, especially if you want to play the game yourself. It's really better that you just do it and learn it that way. So, if you're keeping track, which I really hope you're not, I don't know why you would be doing that, but we're at 44 out of 49 achievements, which means we only have 5 left, which is really awesome. And, it sounds great, and it is great. However, the last 5 are going to take so long. At this point, I think I'm like 50 to 60 hours into the game. And, we'll go over it at the end, how long it actually took me to complete it, but just keep that in mind. At this point, with 5 achievements left, we're probably about 50, 60 hours in. So, with that being said, about 8 hours later, we got our next achievement, Friends Forever, for max ranking each standard keepsake, which is good. And during this time, we also maxed out all of our character relationships, which is awesome. That's something that I've been working towards for literally like 30 hours now, and it's good to have it out of the way. So we can cross that one off the list too. Now that we've maxed out all of our relationships, that will allow us to complete the next 2 achievements. Well, technically the next 1 achievement, the next one after that, it just took me a really long time, so I completed that one pretty much at the same time. But the one that allowed us to complete is One for the Ages. That's for reaching the epilogue of the story. Essentially, what happens is you have a big family reunion with all the Olympian gods and Hades. I won't touch too much on it because I don't want to spoil completely everything, but it's very cool. I would absolutely recommend that you play to this point, but you don't have to do it the way I did. You could do it a lot faster than I did. I just was not focused on this being my primary goal the whole time. And the next one I got was Divided by Death, which reunites Achilles with Patroclus, I believe is his name. Good storyline. It just took me way too long to complete it. One achievement that I forgot to bring up because it popped when we maxed out all of our relationships is Complete Set for earning all the chthonic opinions, which you need to max out all of the relationships, or at least all of the relationships for certain characters to get this one. I believe that I got my last one on the very last character that I completed the relationship with, which I think was Nyx, but I could be wrong. So that's how I got that, but I forgot to say it earlier. Now, if you've been paying attention, you might understand that we have exactly one thing left to do. We have 1 Steam achievement left. We have 48 out of 49. And the one that we have left is Infernal Arms, for unlocking all weapon aspects. There are 6 weapons, and for each weapon I believe there's 4 different weapon aspects. There are 3 regular weapon aspects, and then there's one which is called a hidden weapon aspect. And for each hidden weapon aspect you need to interact with a certain character, and they will give you a phrase that you repeat back to the weapon, which unlocks that hidden weapon aspect. I couldn't figure out for the life of me how to get the last one. It was the gauntlets. The gauntlets I could not figure out how to activate. And it was kind of embarrassing when I figured out how to activate it, because the whole time when you go through Elysium, there's a part where you can fight the Minotaur. And the final boss for Elysium is the Minotaur and Theseus. And you can fight the Minotaur early. And if you do that enough times, he will eventually give you the voice line. But I, through the entire time that I have been playing, at this point over 100 hours into the game, I've just been avoiding it the whole time, because it was a fight that took time. It was a fight that, it wasn't necessarily hard for me at this point, but it took time and it wasn't that easy. Like, the Minotaur was still a somewhat difficult fight, at least even in the end game. It's not like you just walk over it. And I just kept avoiding it, and I kept avoiding it, and I kept avoiding it, until eventually I had to look it up after I did like probably 15 or 20 runs where I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't get this weapon aspect. And so I looked it up, and I completed Infernal Arms, finally. And with that being said, we've completed everything there is to do in this game. I did forget to mention earlier that we did complete the prophecy book as well, but I just forgot to put it in my list of requirements, so you can add that as just an extra one to throw in there anyways. But now we've got all the Steam achievements as well, and we can get to my favorite part of the video, actually giving this game a ranking and a review. So, during my 100% playthrough of Hades, I did 115 runs through the underworld. I defeated Hades 58 times, which, if you ask me, it's pretty good. It's like right about 50%. I'm pretty happy with that. I played 114.5 hours, sorry, 0.8 hours, which is way longer than I ever thought this was going to take. And honestly, if I did it again, it probably wouldn't take so long, but man, this took me a really long time. I really did enjoy all of it. I enjoyed every second of it, with, a few exceptions. There was times where I was frustrated, and there were times where I really didn't want to come back and pick up the game. It was very frustrating at times. But like I said earlier, I don't really think I played the game the way that it's necessarily meant to be intended. After making this video and playing the game for so long, and it's not necessarily different than all the other videos that I've made and all the other games that I've made videos on. Sometimes it can be hard to feel like I ever want to come back to this game and pick it up in the future, but really, with Hades, I'm sure I will. I really enjoyed this game, and I don't know where it would place for me, but I would say it fits into at least my top 20 favorite games that I've ever played. Hades has a lot to give. The story is phenomenal. The characters are great. The soundtrack is amazing. The Supergiant Games hit it out of the park with this one. Really a very, very good game. It just, the only reason that I didn't necessarily love every second of it was because I was putting myself through a gauntlet of completing the game as quickly as I possibly could, which really wore me out. With Hades 2 being in early access and the full game set to be released around May to July of 2025 of this year, it's very likely that we'll see a completion of Hades 2 this year. I'd love to do that, and I hope I get around to it because I really loved this game, and the reception for Hades 2 has been very positive, so I look forward to getting to play that game. I'm sure that it will be a treasure just like this one was. Of course, I am open to any suggestions for games that I would like to complete or you would like me to complete in the future, so you can feel free to drop those in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas of games that I can complete. I've got a whole list, and I'm perfectly happy to add to that list. If you've made it this far, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's get to the ranking. While playing through Hades, I was pretty sure that it was going to rank as the best game that I've played so far. Which, it may be a little skewed. I am probably going to re-rank the games that I've already completed just because, especially a game like Portal, I love Portal, and I enjoyed every second of Portal just like I did with Hades. But the ranking and the way that I ranked it at the time just didn't do it justice. But the only question for me was how high was I going to rank this game, because I knew it was going to be really good. Without further ado, the official ranking that I am going to give to Hades is a 90 out of 100. I know that for about the past 5 minutes, I've really been singing this game's praises, and you might even be surprised that it only got a 90. I know, even though that's clearly the highest I've ranked anything so far, it's not even close, really. The reason that it's only a 90, as much as I loved almost every second of this game, even the parts that frustrated me, the guidelines that I gave myself while rethinking my ranking system were that I can't give anything higher than a 9 out of 10 if I am almost certain that I would never want to re-complete the game. I would play Hades probably so much in the future. I will come back to this game and we'll see what happens with Hades 2, but there's a really high likelihood that I love that game as well. I thoroughly enjoyed Hades, and there's a really good chance that I'll come back and play it again, but I would never recomplete it. That's not to say you shouldn't recomplete it. Recomplete it, not recomplete it. Just complete it for the first time, assuming you haven't already. If you like that kind of thing, you probably will like it, and don't listen to me telling you that you shouldn't. If you want to, go ahead and do it. But for me personally, I would never do it again. I've had that experience, and I don't think that it has enough to give, especially in terms of completion reward. There really is nothing. But I don't think it has enough to give to warrant me doing it again. And for that reason, I probably just wouldn't. And that's why it gets a 90 instead of, something potentially even higher. But 90 is a phenomenal score, 9 out of 10. It's going to be hard to beat Hades in the future. I really do appreciate you making it this far in the video. I know, every YouTuber and their mother says it, but, there's a reason that everybody says it. It really does mean a lot if you've made it this far in the video. Like I said before, a like and subscribe would be greatly helpful. There's a few videos that I've made, in the past that you might like to check out. I just made the Punch-Out Wii 100% completion video, which apparently I missed a part of the 100% completion anyways, but it was fairly insignificant anyways, so whatever. You might like that one. Go check that one out. It was kind of funny. I really enjoyed making the Shovel Knight video. That's my personal favorite of all the ones I've made so far. I recommend that one. Go check it out. Stay on the lookout Subnautica is going to be coming out really soon here, hopefully. I think, hypothetically, all the footage has already been recorded at the time that I'm finishing this editing process. So hopefully that'll be out in the next week or so here. If, if I'm lucky, and by lucky I mean if I, buckle down and actually do it. But that would be good. And then I think Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is coming out after that. And after that one, who knows? I'd like to receive some comments from you guys about what we could do next. But anyways, I'm rambling at this point, so I'll see you later. Have a good day. Thank you very much for getting this far in the video. Bye-bye.